Hello again, welcome back to the Telltale channel. Today we have special bonanza of 5 Disney stories for you to enjoy. To start with we have Dumbo, followed by Aladdin, and finally, 101 Dalmatians. Be sure to pay close attention to the stories and watch them all the way to the end for the fun quizzes and fun facts. Please remember you can help the channel grow by just clicking the subscribe button, it's 100% free. Early one morning, a flock of storks flew high over the sleeping countryside carrying some very special bundles. Inside the bundles were new baby animals, waiting to be delivered to their mothers. Far below, the head stork saw the tents and trailers of a circus. "Release your bundles," he shouted. From her pen, Mrs. Jumbo watched the bundles as they floated down. Surely one of them held her baby, she thought, as one parcel after another dropped gently to the ground. But no special bundle came for Mrs. Jumbo. As the sun rose, all the circus people awoke and began preparing to take the circus to another town. The train engineer oiled the wheels on Casey Jr., the cheery circus train. The animal trainers led the animals into their train carriages. But when the elephant's turn came, Mrs. Jumbo did not want to leave. As she climbed aboard the elephant carriage, she searched the sky once again. Where, oh where, was the bundle with her little baby? "All aboard," shouted the ringmaster. "All aboard," Casey Jr. whistled. With a powerful tug, he headed down the track. Once again the circus was on its way. As Casey Jr. chugged along, a stork had been watching from his perch on a puffy cloud. He had one more bundle to deliver, and he wanted to make sure it got to the right place. The stork looked at his crumpled map. Then he peered over the edge of the cloud and saw Casey Jr. far below. "That's the place," said the stork, picking up the bundle in his beak. "Well, little fellow, let's get going." The stork flew down to the little train and landed on the roof of one of the train carriages. "Oh, Mrs. Jumbo, special delivery for Mrs. Jumbo," the stork called, hopping from one train carriage to the next. "Yoo-hoo, in here," the elephants trumpeted. The stork hopped into the train carriage. "Which one of you ladies is expecting a little bundle of joy?" he asked. "Right over there," the elephants answered, pointing to Mrs. Jumbo. Mrs. Lumbo untied the bundle to reveal an adorable baby. "What are you going to call him?" the elephants asked Mrs. Jumbo. "Jumbo Jr.," she replied proudly. "Coochie coochie coo," one elephant said, tickling the baby beneath his chin. "Harchoo," the little elephant sneezed. His ears, which had been neatly tucked behind his head, flopped open. They were enormous. The elephants shrieked with laughter. "Why, with those ears, you should call him Dumbo," one elephant giggled. Mrs. Jumbo turned her back on the others. She didn't care if her baby's ears were big. She thought he was beautiful just the way he was. Cuddling him in her trunk, she gently rocked him to sleep. The next morning was bright and sunny, a perfect day for a circus parade. The ringmaster led the parade on his prancing horse. Behind him, the band played a rousing march. "Come one, come all," the ringmaster shouted. "Laugh at the clowns, thrill to the daring feats, come see the most exciting show on earth." The crowd laughed as the clowns did cartwheels and played tricks. They shivered when they saw the ferocious lions and tigers growling in their cages. And everyone cheered when the elephants marched by. "Look at the darling baby elephant," the people exclaimed when they saw Dumbo trotting along behind his mother. The townspeople followed the parade to the circus ground. "Hurry, hurry, hurry, step right up and get your tickets," the ringmaster called to the crowd. Inside the elephant tent, Mrs. Jumbo was quietly bathing Dumbo when a bunch of rowdy boys ran in. "Look at those ears," they shouted when they saw Dumbo. That's the funniest thing ever." The boys wiggled their ears and stuck out their tongues at Dumbo. Dumbo tried to hide behind his mother, but the boys wouldn't leave him alone. Laughing and jeering, they crawled beneath the ropes and pulled his ears. Mrs. Jumbo wanted to protect her baby. She picked up a bale of straw and threw it at the boys to scare them away. "Help! Mad elephant!" they screamed. The ringmaster dashed into the tent. "Down, Mrs. Jumbo!" he shouted. Just then, someone tried to pull Dumbo away. Furious, Mrs. Jumbo bellowed and charged. Wild elephant," the people screamed, running in all directions. The animal trainers threw ropes around Mrs. Jumbo, who fought and strained against them. But eventually she was too exhausted to fight anymore. "Lock her up," the ringmaster ordered. As Dumbo watched, the trainers dragged his mother away. They locked her in a wagon that was set apart from the rest of the circus. There, with her legs in chains, Mrs. Jumbo stood alone, crying for her baby. Back in the tent, the other elephants gossiped about Dumbo's mother. "Mrs. Jumbo's behavior is a disgrace," they said. "And it's all the fault of that little runt with the ridiculous ears." In a corner of the tent sat a little mouse named Timothy. He had seen and heard everything. When Timothy saw how the other elephants treated Dumbo, it made him angry. "Everyone's making fun of his ears. What's the matter with them? I think they're cute. I'm going to do something about this," said Timothy. "So you like to pick on little guys," he said to the gossiping elephants. The elephants bellowed in fear and backed away from the brave little mouse. "They're all afraid of a mouse," Timothy laughed. "Wait till I tell the little guy." But Dumbo was scared of Timothy too. "Ah, you aren't afraid of little old me, are you?" Timothy asked. "I'm Timothy Mouse, and I'm your friend Dumbo. I've got a plan to help free your mother." Suddenly, Dumbo forgot all about being scared and listened to everything his new friend had to say. "I know you're embarrassed by your ears, kid," Timothy said. "But lots of people with big ears are famous. So all we gotta do is make you a big star. Leave everything to me." That night, as the ringmaster slept, Timothy sneaked into his tent. He crept close to the ringmaster's pillow and whispered his idea into his ear. The ringmaster woke with a start. "I just dreamed an idea for the grandest finale of all time," he exclaimed. "And Dumbo will be the star." The very next day, the ringmaster stepped into the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we will now present the most stupendous, magnificent, super-colossal event ever seen. On this insignificant ball, we will construct an elephant pyramid." The ringmaster blew his whistle, and the first elephant climbed on top of a large ball. Dumbo and Timothy watched as the pyramid rose higher and higher, until it almost reached the top of the tent. "And now, ladies and gentlemen," the ringmaster shouted, "the world's smallest elephant will spring to the top of the pyramid." Drums rolled and trumpets blared. A bright spotlight shone on Dumbo. The little elephant ran to the springboard. But before he could make his leap, his ears came untied. He tripped over them and went sprawling headfirst into the elephant pyramid. The elephants teetered and swayed before they began to fall. They tumbled down, crashing into beams and platforms. They smacked into walls and pulled down wires and ropes. Finally, they crashed into the central tent pole. The enormous tent began to sway and billow. Then, with a huge groan, it collapsed. Dumbo was left sitting alone and miserable in the middle of the ruins. After the damage was repaired, the circus headed to the next town. In their train carriage, the groaning elephants blamed Dumbo for everything. "I never want to work with that little troublemaker again," one elephant complained. "Oh, you won't have to, dearie," replied another, "because they've made him into a clown." The elephants gasped. Being a clown was a disgrace. The very next show, the clowns painted Dumbo's face and dressed him as a baby. They put him on a tiny platform high up in a building surrounded by crackling make-believe flames. Dumbo stood shaking with fear, while far below, clowns dressed as firemen ran around squirting hosepipes at each other. "Save my baby," one clown screeched. "The baby will have to jump," the clown fire chief announced. The fireman held up a thin safety net. Closing his eyes, Dumbo leaped from the building. He fell through the net and landed in a tub of wet plaster. The audience roared with laughter. As the clowns bowed to the cheering crowds, they paid no attention to Dumbo, who crept from the tent feeling hurt, humiliated, and miserable. After the show, the clowns celebrated in their tent. "Cheer up, Dumbo," Timothy said as he scrubbed his friend's sad little face. "I'm going to take you to see your mother." A smile crossed Dumbo's face. "Mrs. Jumbo, someone to see you," Timothy called. Mrs. Jumbo put her trunk through the bars of the wagon and stroked Dumbo's head. She wrapped her trunk around Dumbo and rocked him lovingly. At last it was time to leave. Tearfully, Dumbo and his mother waved goodbye. As Timothy and Dumbo passed the clown's tent, they heard the clowns talking about their act. "Let's make the house taller tomorrow," shouted a clown. "Be careful," warned another clown. "We don't want to hurt the little guy." "Ah, you can't hurt an elephant, they're made of rubber." The first clown waved his hand scornfully. No one noticed that in his excitement, he knocked a bottle of wine into Dumbo's tub. The clown's words hurt Dumbo's feelings, and he began to cry again. He sobbed so hard, he got the hiccups. "You need a nice long drink of water," Timothy said, leading Dumbo to the tub. As Dumbo and Timothy drank, they began to feel strange. Dizzily, Dumbo plopped down on the ground and began blowing giant bubbles. Before Timothy and Dumbo's eyes, the bubbles seemed to turn into enormous elephants that paraded and danced in the air around them. Dumbo and Timothy didn't know if they were awake or dreaming. As dawn broke, a flock of crows stared at a strange sight. There on a branch, high above the ground, a little elephant lay sleeping peacefully, and in his trunk was a mouse. Swooping down, the crows surrounded Timothy and Dumbo. Their loud voices woke Timothy. "What are you fellas doing down here?" he asked sleepily. "What we want to know is, what you're doing up here," one crow replied. "Up where?" Timothy asked groggily, rubbing his eyes. He looked down. "Yikes," he shouted. "Dumbo, Dumbo, wake up. Don't look now, but I think we're up in a tree." Dumbo woke up so fast he fell out of the tree. The crows laughed. "Ah, don't pay any attention to them," Timothy said, helping Dumbo up. "I do wonder how we got up in that tree though." "Maybe you flew," one of the crows shouted. "Oh sure," Timothy shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe we," Timothy stopped and stared at Dumbo's ears. "That's it, Dumbo," he exclaimed. "Your ears, they're perfect wings, you're the world's only flying elephant." The crows started laughing again. "You ought to be ashamed of yourselves picking on a poor little fellow like him," Timothy yelled. His words made the crows feel bad. One crow plucked a shiny black tail feather and gave it to Timothy. "Tell the little guy that this is a magic feather," the crow said. "As long as he holds on to it, he can fly." Timothy gave Dumbo the feather and told him what the crows had said. "Now all we need is a little flying practice," Timothy said, climbing into Dumbo's hat. "Heave-ho," the crows chanted as they pushed Dumbo to the edge of a cliff. "Come on, Dumbo," Timothy coached, "flap those ears." Dumbo clutched his feather, closed his eyes, flapped his ears, and suddenly he was soaring. "Hot diggity, you're flying, you're really flying," Timothy shouted. "I knew you could do it. Wait till the next performance, we'll show everyone what you can do." Soon it was time for Dumbo to perform again with the clowns. He stood on the platform with Timothy perched on his trunk. The clowns had built the burning house higher, and the ground looked very, very far away. But this time Dumbo wasn't afraid. He clutched his magic feather in his trunk and waited for his cue. "Come on, jump, jump," the clowns shouted. "Boy, are they in for a surprise," Timothy chuckled as Dumbo jumped from the platform. But as they flew through the air, the wind tore the feather from Dumbo's trunk. Dumbo froze. Without his magic feather, he didn't believe he could fly. He and Timothy hurtled towards the ground. Timothy slid to the end of Dumbo's trunk. "Open your ears and fly," he pleaded. You can fly all by yourself." Dumbo heard Timothy's words and believed them. And what's more, he believed in himself. Dumbo spread his ears and soared higher and higher. The audience went wild as Dumbo zoomed after the clowns, chasing them around the ring. The crowd roared as he dived at the ringmaster. They applauded as Dumbo did loop-the-loops and rolls and spins in the air. By the next morning, every newspaper carried pictures of the little elephant and Timothy. Dumbo was famous. "Wonder Elephant soars to fame," the headlines screamed. In every village, town and city, people flocked to the circus to see Dumbo the flying elephant. The ringmaster was so pleased that he ordered the release of Dumbo's mother. In fact, he even gave Mrs. Jumbo a special railway carriage of her own. Dumbo thought it was great fun being a star. But what he loved best of all was being with his mother once again. The end. Fun fact: there are 3 species of elephant: African savanna, African forest, and Asian. The ears of African elephants are much larger than their cousins and are described as being shaped like the African continent, whereas the ears of Asian elephants are shaped like the Indian subcontinent. There's also a trunk difference. African elephants have 2 fingers at the tip of their trunks, whereas Asian elephants have 1. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. Who brought baby Dumbo to Mrs. Jumbo? The answer is the stork. What did the crows give to Dumbo to help him fly? The answer is a feather. What 2 colors was Timothy's outfit? The answer is red and yellow. Fun fact: a group of crows is called a murder. There are several different explanations for the origin of this term, mostly based on old folk tales and superstitions. For instance, there is a folk tale that crows will gather and decide the capital fate of another crow. Stay tuned for the next story. Once upon a time, in the ancient city of Agrabah, there lived a young man named Aladdin. He was so very poor, he often had to steal food from the marketplace, but Aladdin was determined not to remain a thief forever. One day he promised his pet monkey, "Things will be different. We'll live in a palace and wear fine clothes, not rags." Meanwhile, in the Sultan's luxurious palace, time was running out for the beautiful Princess Jasmine. "The law says you must marry a prince before your next birthday," the Sultan said. "There are only 3 days left for you to choose a husband." "The law is wrong," cried Jasmine. "I don't want to marry anyone I do not love, even if he is a prince." Jasmine ran tearfully into the gardens and hugged her pet tiger. "Oh Raya," she said, "I don't want to be a princess anymore." Then she planned her escape. Early the next morning, the princess disguised herself in a long cloak and climbed over the palace walls. Jasmine made her way through the busy marketplace. Seeing a hungry child, she picked up an apple from a stall and gave it to him. The princess did not know that she had to pay the fruit seller. "Stop, thief!" shouted the man, running to grab the princess. But Aladdin, who happened to overhear, jumped to Jasmine's rescue. He led her to the rooftop where he and Abu lived. As he gazed at the beautiful young girl, he knew he was falling in love. Suddenly the royal guards arrived and arrested Aladdin. "Release him," by order of the princess, Jasmine cried, pulling back her cloak. "I would, your highness," said the chief guard, who was surprised to see her, "but my orders come from Jafar." Then the guards dragged Aladdin off to the palace dungeon. Now Jafar was the Sultan's most trusted advisor, but unknown to the Sultan, he was plotting to take over the throne. Jafar knew of a magic lamp that would give him the power he needed, but it was hidden in the desert, deep inside the Cave of Wonders. The tiger head that guarded the cave had told Jafar that only a diamond in the rough could enter, someone whose worth was hidden deep within. Using his sorcery, Jafar discovered that this diamond in the rough was none other than Aladdin. So, disguised as an old beggar, Jafar freed Aladdin from the dungeon and led him through the desert. Promising great wealth, Jafar persuaded Aladdin to enter the cave and get the lamp for him. The fearsome tiger head warned them to touch nothing but the lamp. Inside the first chamber, Aladdin and Abu met a friendly magic carpet who showed them where to find the lamp. But just as Aladdin picked it up, Abu caught sight of a magnificent jewel. Forgetting the warning, Abu quickly snatched up the jewel. At that very moment, the walls of the cave began to collapse and the floor gave way. Aladdin, Abu, and the magic carpet were trapped. When the destruction had stopped, Aladdin studied the lamp. "What's so special about this dusty old thing?" he wondered, rubbing the dust away. Suddenly, the lamp started to glow. A cloud of smoke billowed from its spout and became an enormous blue shape. "I am your genie direct from the lamp," said the creature. To prove his powers, he got Aladdin and his friends out of the cave and offered him 3 wishes. Aladdin thought of Princess Jasmine. She would never marry a poor street boy. "Genie," he said, "I wish to be a prince." The genie waved his hand and turned Aladdin into a prince. Abu became a magnificent elephant that would carry Aladdin into Agrabah. Calling himself Prince Ali Ababwa, Aladdin marched towards the Sultan's palace in a grand procession. That night, Aladdin took Princess Jasmine for a moonlit ride on the magic carpet. When they returned, Jasmine knew that Prince Ali was really Aladdin. She had found a prince she wanted to marry, but Jafar had other plans for Prince Ali. He ordered his guards to capture the prince and throw him into the sea. As Aladdin sank beneath the waves, the lamp fell from his turban. Using Aladdin's second wish, the genie saved his master from drowning. Back at the palace, the wicked Jafar had hypnotized the Sultan using his magic staff. "You will marry Jafar," the Sultan ordered Jasmine. "Never," cried Jasmine. "Father, what's wrong with you?" "I know," said Aladdin, bursting into the room. He snatched the staff from Jafar and smashed it to pieces. At once the Sultan snapped out of his trance. Jafar fled, but as he left, he glimpsed the magic lamp peeking out from Aladdin's turban. So thought Jafar, hiding safely in the tower. Prince Ali is really that ragged street urchin Aladdin, and he has the lamp, but not for long. The next morning, Jafar's cunning parrot Lego flew silently into Aladdin's room and stole the lamp. At last Jafar cried, "I am your master now." He rubbed the lamp and watched the genie appear. Reluctantly, the genie obeyed Jafar's orders and made him the Sultan. Then Jafar wished to be the most powerful sorcerer in the world. Jafar sent Aladdin, Abu, and the magic carpet to the other side of the world. Then he cast a spell over the palace. He suspended Jasmine's father from the ceiling like a puppet while Jasmine became his servant. Finally, when Aladdin returned to the palace, thanks to the magic carpet, Jafar turned his attention to him. Aladdin bravely took up a sword and challenged Jafar to a fight. In reply, the evil sorcerer conjured up a flaming wall of fire and turned himself into a huge terrifying cobra. Jafar raised his head to strike Aladdin. "Did you think you could beat the most powerful being on earth?" he snarled. Aladdin thought quickly of a way to trick Jafar. "The genie has much more power than you," he teased. The power-mad sorcerer knew that Aladdin was right. "Genie," he said, "my final wish is to be the most powerful genie of all." A swirling mist of light surrounded Jafar, and he changed shape once again. Then, to his own amazement, Jafar and Lego were sucked into a lamp. Like all genies, Jafar was now trapped forever. He was a prisoner inside the lamp. The evil spell was broken. "Jasmine, I'm sorry I lied to you," said Aladdin. "I'm not a prince at all, I'm only the poor street boy you met in the market." The genie appeared at Aladdin's side. "You still have your third wish left, Al," he said. "I can make you a prince again." But Aladdin wished for the genie's freedom instead. "You'll always be a prince to me," the genie told him. "That's right," the Sultan agreed. "You've proved your worth as far as I'm concerned. What we need is a new law. I decree that from this day, the princess may marry whomever she chooses." "I choose Aladdin," Jasmine cried. At last, the princess had found the prince of her dreams. All of Agrabah looked forward to their wedding day and to Jasmine and Aladdin living happily ever after. The end. Fun fact: tigers are fast runners. They may be big and heavy, but they're not slow. At full speed, these felines can reach up to 65 kilometers per hour and roam as far as 30 kilometers a night in search of food. That's why they need to live in large areas full of trees, with plenty of water to drink and prey to eat. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. What did Abu try to take from the Cave of Wonders? The answer is a jewel. What did the genie turn Abu into when he turned Aladdin into a prince? The answer is an elephant. What did Jafar turn into when he was fighting Aladdin? The answer is a cobra. Fun fact: genies or jinns are supposed to be magical beings or creatures with free will. They are originally found in ancient myths and legends of the Middle East, especially Arabia. Stay tuned for the next story. Roger Radcliffe was a musician. He lived in a little flat in London with Pongo, his pet Dalmatian dog. One day, Roger got married. His lovely new wife was called Anita, and she had a beautiful lady Dalmatian called Perdita. Soon, Perdita was expecting her first litter of puppies. Life seemed perfect until one day an old friend of Anita's, Cruella de Vil, came to visit. Perdita and Pongo were frightened of her. "Where are the puppies?" Cruella demanded. "They're not expected for another 3 weeks," Anita replied. "You must let me know when they arrive. I just adore Dalmatian puppies, their coats are so beautiful." And with that, Cruella swept out of the house in a flurry. 3 weeks later, Perdita and Pongo became the proud parents of 15 puppies. Roger, Anita, and Nanny the housekeeper were delighted. The very next day, Cruella returned. 15 puppies, she cried excitedly. I will buy all of them. Oh no, you won't, said Roger, they are not for sale. You fools, you'll be sorry, Cruella cried, storming out of the house. One night soon after, Cruella's henchmen Horace and Jasper Badon lay in wait to dog-nap the puppies. They sat in their van and waited for Roger and Anita to take Perdita and Pongo for their evening walk. Once the coast was clear, the Badons forced their way into the house. When Nanny tried to stop them, the Badons locked her in a broom cupboard. By the time Nanny managed to escape, the Badons were gone, and so were the puppies. The police immediately launched an investigation, but as the days went by, the puppies were still not found. At last, Pongo said to Perdita, "The humans aren't getting anywhere, we'll have to find the puppies ourselves." Pongo decided to try the twilight bark. This was the quickest way for dogs to send and receive news across the country. That evening, when the 2 Dalmatians were taken for their walk, Pongo barked the alert. 3 loud barks and a howl from the top of Primrose Hill. After a moment, an answering bark was heard. "It's the Great Dane at Hampstead," Pongo said to Perdita, and he barked out his message. Danny the Great Dane was very surprised by the message. 15 Dalmatian puppies have been stolen, he told a terrier friend. The humans haven't been able to find them, so it's up to us to send out an all-dog alert with the twilight bark. Danny's big deep voice began to send the news all over London. 2 mongrels heard the alert. One said, "I think we should let the rest of the country know." And so, within the hour, word had spread north, south, east and west all over England. Before too long, the twilight bark reached an old sheepdog called Colonel who lived on a farm. Colonel's friends, a horse named Captain and a cat named Tibbs, listened too. They were all very surprised to hear that 15 puppies had been stolen. "That's funny," Tibbs said to Captain and Colonel. "I heard puppies barking over at the old DeVille house last night. But no one lives there now," said Colonel. "We must go and see what's going on." So Colonel and Tibbs went quietly up to the house and peered through a broken window. Inside the house, Horace and Jasper Badon were eating supper and relaxing in front of the television. All round the room there were puppies. Not 15, nor even 50, but 99 of them. Colonel quickly returned to Captain's stable and loudly barked the good news. Within no time at all, the twilight bark sent the message all the way back to London that the puppies had been found. It finally reached the ears of Perdita and Pongo. They set off across the snowy countryside as fast as they could to rescue their puppies. Meanwhile, Sergeant Tibbs was keeping watch on the house. When he saw Cruella drive up to the front door, he went to the broken window to hear what was happening. Cruella was ordering the Badons to kill the puppies. "I want their skins for fur coats," she cried. "I will be back first thing in the morning." And with that warning she left. Tibbs was horrified. Fur coats from puppy skins, what a terrible thought. There wasn't a moment to lose. As soon as the Badons began watching television again, Tibbs crept through the broken window and whispered to the nearest puppy. "Tell everyone they must escape, Cruella is after your coats." When all the puppies had been alerted, Tibbs led them out of the room and up the stairs to find a hiding place. As soon as the Badons discovered that the puppies had gone, they searched all over the house and eventually headed up the stairs. The puppies were cowering in a corner of a bedroom. Tibbs was in front ready to protect them from the Badons. Meanwhile, Colonel had met up with Perdita and Pongo and led them to the DeVille house. They arrived just in the nick of time and quickly bounded into action. Perdita attacked Horace Badon, while Pongo tore at Jasper Badon's trousers. Under cover of the fight, Tibbs led the puppies out of the house to the safety of Captain's stable. Leaving the Battens in a heap on the floor, Perdita and Pongo dashed after the puppies. "Are our 15 all here?" asked Perdita anxiously. "You're 15, and a few more," replied Captain. "There are 99. 99, said Pongo astonished. Whatever did Cruella want with 99 puppies? There was silence for a moment, then one little puppy said, "She was going to make fur coats out of us." Perdita and Pongo looked at each other in horror. They had never heard of anything so evil. "We'll just have to take them all back to London with us," said Perdita. "I'm sure Roger and Anita will look after them." Perdita, Pongo, and the puppies set off back to London, leaving a trail of paw prints in the snow. Cruella, who had returned for the puppies' coats, quickly spotted the paw prints, and the chase began. Eventually, after trudging across the countryside, Perdita and Pongo led the tired puppies to the shelter of a blacksmith's shop. Cruella and the Battens were still on their trail. Suddenly, Pongo had an idea. He made the puppies roll in some soot until they all looked like black Labradors. Under the cover of their disguise, the puppies climbed into a van that was going to London. But falling snowflakes began to wash away the soot. Cruella saw white patches appearing on the puppies' coats and realized that she had been tricked. After them, she shouted to the Battens. Pongo just had time to leap onto the tailboard as the van sped off with Cruella and the Battens right behind. Cruella was determined to force the van off the road, but as she banged into the side of it, her car skidded out of control and hurtled down a steep hill into a snowdrift. Then the Battens' van crashed into the back of Cruella's car and they all ended up in a large pile of wreckage. Back in London and home at last, Roger, Anita and Nanny hugged the tired puppies. Then Nanny said, "Have you noticed that there seems to be a lot more of them?" Roger started to count. 14, 62, 94, and 5 over there. That's 101 Dalmatians counting Perdita and Pongo. "Whatever are we going to do with them all?" asked Anita. "Why, keep them of course," said Roger. "We'll buy a big house and have a Dalmatian plantation." And that's exactly what they did. The end. Fun fact. Dalmatians are born spotless. Although Dalmatians are known for their striking spotted coats, they are actually born completely white and develop spots from 2 to 4 weeks old. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. How did the dogs communicate? The answer is the twilight bark. Who did the Battens lock in the broom cupboard? The answer is the nanny. What was the horse's name? The answer is Captain. Fun fact. The dog is a domesticated descendant of the wolf. There are over 200 different breeds of dog. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Remember to like and subscribe for free to the Telltale channel and click the notification bell for more stories, quizzes, and fun facts. Check out the channel's playlist for more Telltale stories and fairy tales.